Garlic has been widely used as a remedy for colds and flus throughout Asia, Europe, and Africa. And I think it's pretty effective. And recently there's been some research coming out suggesting that it might be really helpful with COVID-19. Now, I'm not going to say one way or the other on that, but there are some references in the description of this video which you can look into that can kind of back up that idea. But what I want to describe here is how you would actually use garlic if you were treating a cold or flu or some kind of acute infection. There's some chemistry to understand, and if you don't do it right, it won't have very much effect. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about the risks and side effects with garlic. Now, it's so commonly used, people assume it's just completely safe, but in fact, there are some risks associated with it, and its main issue is that it can interfere with the metabolism of certain medications. So if you are on medications, you really should check to see if those are safe to be used with garlic. The other thing is that it does thin the blood, and so it's not safe to use before surgery. And finally, I should mention that a lot of people do get digestive upsets from it. So if you are sensitive to garlic, I would suggest using different medicinal herbs. There are so many to choose from, and I think it's always best to use the one that is most harmonized to your body. Okay, so let's look at the structure of a garlic clove a little bit. So if you've ever sliced a clove in half, you'll see that there's all these tiny little compartments inside of it, which will ooze out this fluid. So these liquids are held separate inside the garlic clove. And when the clove is crushed, these liquids mix together and a new chemical is formed called allicin, or in this diagram they're referring to it as active thiosulfonates. But regardless of what you call it, this is the stuff that you want anytime you are using garlic to fight an infection. The chambers have to be broken open, and it's kind of like those light sticks, only in this case the chemical reaction happens very slowly. It to fully happen takes about 10 minutes. So the key is to crush the garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking or eating. Yeah, so you can mix it with your food at that point and cook it. The allicin will stay intact. If you are treating a cold or flu, the way I suggest doing it is actually in the form of garlic tea, which sounds kind of gross to some people, but I encourage you to just try it. The traditional recipe is to take 2 or 3 garlic cloves, crush them, let them sit for a little while, and then put them in a cup and pour hot water over that, and then you can add honey to that for taste. So a tea is what I have found to be the best for an acute infection. If you're using garlic for cardiovascular health, which it's also really good for, you could just mix it in with food and cook it. And people also use it for making improvements and changes to their gut flora. And in that case, you could use it in food as well. But for an acute infection, such as a respiratory infection, I suggest making the hot infusion or a hot tea. If you don't have fresh garlic, this can actually be done with garlic powder as well. Very simple. You have to rehydrate the garlic powder. So what you do is you put about half a teaspoon or a teaspoon in half a cup of water and let it soak for half an hour in this case. And once it's done that at room temperature, then you can add hot water and drink that as a tea as well. So what about using garlic supplements? The problem here is that allicin is a very unstable molecule and it has a very short shelf life. So it really does have to be made on the spot when you're ready to consume it. The last thing I want to talk about is the issue of garlic breath. Now, this is a product of the allicin forming this special sulfur compounds which fumigate your lungs and your respiratory system. It might sound strange, but you actually want that to happen, so you can't really find any way to not have that happen other than just trying to cover it up with maybe some other herbs. So that's enough about garlic to get you started. There's actually a lot more too garlic. I had to leave a lot of things out on this video. There's some amazing things about the science of it and its ancient history of use. And I want to let you know that I do have some other videos about other herbs, and I'm also putting together some content about using healing methods which are based upon cardiovascular principles. So if that sounds interesting, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notifications.